Hello again and welcome to another Warhammer 40k Imperial Guard video, and today guys I want to talk about the Imperial Guard and why I love the faction so much. But more importantly guys, I want to ask you lot, why do you love the Imperial Guard so much? This video was originally going to be called what is your favourite faction, kind of to piggyback off the one I did last week about what was your least favourite faction. But I realised that's kind of redundant doing it on an Imperial Guard channel. I mean, a lot of answers were going to be Imperial Guard, right? So I thought, you know what, let's mix things up a little bit. Let's just talk about why we love the Guard so much. What draws us to this faction? How did we get into it? Like I said, there's no script. It's entirely off the cuff. I'm just doing this as a bit of a fun extra video after a long day's recording. And I just thought, you know, I've been playing this army for a long time now. Like, coming up to 20 years of service to the Emperor. And just thought, you know, what draws me to it? No matter how badly GW seems to treat our faction. Sometimes they treat it as well, sometimes they don't. But, you know, no matter the highs, the lows, the ups, the downs, why do I always get drawn back to the Imperial Guard? How come when I go and play other factions and when I come back, it's like, the Imperial Guard, comfy pair of slippers. What is it that draws you to this faction? Now, interestingly, if you're not an Imperial Guard player listening to this, you're more than welcome here, mate. Don't worry, it's not like you have to tune out. Let me know why you love your particular faction. This could still be a little bit of a what's your favourite faction kind of video, you know? But I just want to talk about what draws us players to certain factions. What draws us to the Imperial Guard? How come I play my Genestealer cult, but when I come back, I want to play my Guard? How come when I play my Black Templars, it's like a little palate cleanser, but I always come back to the Guard? How come whenever I do get other armies, I kind of want to Guardify them? I want to turn them into this cool, realistic fighting force. Why do I always do that? So for me, I just want to talk a little bit about why I love the Guard so much. What draws me to it? Some of these answers will be more obvious. Some of them will be a little bit more personal. So I think the first thing to mention is just the obvious one, which is it's because they're just blokes. They're just humans. They're just guys. You know, men, women, whatever, just fighting for humanity at the end of the day. And I think it's that sense of just being able to relate to them, being able to look at them and be like, yeah, these are my dudes. And I think that's really what the Imperial Guard has going for it as one of the best factions. I think it's why no matter how much GW has like the Space Marines as the poster boys, I think there's always going to be that undercurrent of, you know, Guard players knowing that they're kind of really one of the best factions for the Imperium. They're kind of really the unsung heroes kind of thing. It's because it's just there's no other faction out there that is more your dudes. Okay, I mean, you can collect. I mean, whenever I speak to any Imperial Guard player, anyone, even the competitive ones who don't really have that much of an interest in the faction, as like from like a fluff point of view, even those people will have their headcanon. Even those people will come up with a custom name for their regiment. And when you start getting past the really competitive players, there's the level of fluff and headcanon that people have for their Guard armies. It's just insane. In a good way, it's insane. I honestly don't know any other faction. And I mean that honestly. I honestly don't know any other faction where the players put so much effort into their background, so much effort into their lore and their fluff and their regimental history. You know, there is a whole section in the mordianglorytv Discord called Fluff and Lore. And people post, I would say short novels. Sometimes they're epic novels. Just page after page after page of custom fluff they've come up for their regiment. And sometimes it is, you know, a little bit of fan wank and they're just having a bit of fun and their guys can do no wrong and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of the time it's really well balanced. Like it's, you know, their guys aren't perfect. They've had massacres. Their regiment has been reformed dozens of times over the years and all that kind of stuff. And I think that is one of the things that I love about the Imperial Guard. And what I do with my own army is I love the headcanon. I love the fluff. So like, I often go on about how like this, you know, this Imperial Guard mortal wound bomb, that's really good. It's a really good tactic. But I hate using psychers. I hate using psychers because I have the headcanon for my army where there was this one point near the end of 7th where I was using loads and loads of psychers. And then when 8th edition came along, I was like, I don't want to use psychers anymore. And I did the whole Great Morden Restoration project where it was like, you know, my guys, I wanted to redo the paint scheme and I tied all that into my regimental fluff. So it's like at the end of, you know, one big campaign that my Mordian 50th Rifles were involved in, it turned out that the psychers they've been using weren't exactly sanctioned, or maybe there was like some kind of inquisitor in there that was like, you know what, you know, you guys have been using a lot of psychers, a little bit heretical that you guys have been using a lot of psychers, I'm a hardline Puritan. And so they were forced to go on a penitent crusade. And that's why the uniforms changed. And that's why the insignia changed. And that's why instead of having a regimental crest now, Their crest is what I see is it's an Imperial, it's like a Templar cross with a skull on it. And that is to represent them on a penitent crusade. Okay, their regiment, they have the regimental number, but the regimental crest has been taken off them. They are on a penitent crusade right now. And so that's a lot of fluff and a lot of headcanon. That's what I love about the Imperial Guard, is more so you can, than with any other faction out there, I feel like you can really go to town, really go in depth on your fluff and your guys. Because, I mean, you could do it with the factions. I'm not saying other factions don't do it. I'm just saying it seems to be a lot more extensive and a lot easier to do it with the guide. It feels just natural. I guess that comes down to another point where it's like, it just feels great to be able to relate to the models a lot more. And it always feels like when a Guardsman does something, it always feels like epic. Even if it's like not particularly epic, it always feels epic. So there's this like, I always seem to remember, it's from such a long time ago. I can't even tell you like what year it was. It must have been 15 years ago. I was playing at my secondary school or high school for our transatlantic cousins. At my secondary school, we always used to have end of term or end of half term big blowout games of Warhammer 40k. This was before Apocalypse was even a thing, before it was officially labelled Apocalypse. And I remember my Imperial Guard were holding this part of the front. It was Imperium versus, you know, like Xenos and Chaos and stuff like that. And I was one of the only Imperial Guard players there. There's a lot of Space Marines. And this Chaos Space Marine sergeant charged. This Chaos Space Marine, yes, the sergeant was left over, charged my squad of Guardsmen, just expecting to like kill them. And like, this was before Overwatch or anything like that. And so you couldn't, I couldn't stop him. But the one thing that was in our favour is that I was behind a barricade, which meant that technically I got to strike first. This is like way back in like 3rd or 4th edition. I got to strike first because Terminators didn't have grenades. They couldn't. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. So the point was is that my Guardsmen got to go first, and this squad was called Blue Squad, right? And it was a regular squad of Guardsmen, but for some reason I'd painted the shoulder pads blue. And the reason I'd painted the shoulder pads and helmets blue was because they were the only armoured fist squad of my army. I was like, well, armoured fist squads have got to be like differentiated from regular Guardsmen, right? So a normal Caden colour scheme, but with blue shoulder pads and helmets. And they charged. This Terminator guy charged me, and I got to go first. I just killed him. I just bayoneted him to death. And I always like to imagine in my head, like, this Terminator, like, charging them. And the sergeant just sort of, without the Terminator even really expecting what to happen, the sergeant just sort of dashes forward, because this is when you could give your sergeant lasgun, just sort of, dashes forward and just sort of bayonets the sergeant, the Terminator sergeant through the eye, just kills him. Like, just gets that weak spot, just perfect, just goes straight through the eye socket, and just kills him. And sort of like the Terminator just crumples forward, and he just turns to the rest of the men with like a big bombastic grin on his face, and it's got a big like stogie, big fucking cigar in his mouth. He's like, "See, lads, they don't like it up 'em. Just as the commissar says, they don't like it up 'em." It's just all those kind of moments, like you get those epic moments with the Guard. And so I think it's one that so. Apart from them being my dudes, and apart from being, very relatable, and just being like normal humans, and the underdogs, and all the myriad of reasons, all the many, many reasons that like I love the Imperial Guard, that I'm sure relate to a lot of you guys. Like the fact that they are the underdogs as well is fantastic. That's what always feels great when the Guard does something epic, because it feels like they shouldn't do. Do you know what I mean? But every single Guard player I know, from the guy that's just started with his little 500-point force, right through to the person that's got hundreds of thousands of points, every single one of them has a story of when their guys did something epic. Even if they lost, they still have, in fact, for a lot of Guard players, especially when they lost, they have that epic story. I mean, I'll tell you now, it was the first competitive game I ever played. And I had my Guard army, and I hadn't put any. This is back in 5th, 6th edition. I had whatever edition it was. I had the 5th edition codex, and I remember I hadn't. It was the first time I was using pure infantry guard. And I hadn't put any commissars or priests in units because I didn't really know that those were important. And I just remember getting absolutely smashed because back in the day you used to be able to blob all your Guardsmen squads together. You could take a platoon of Guardsmen, 40, 50 guys, and there was a special rule, which is a stratagem now, but a special rule called combined squads, where you could take all 50 guys and merge them into one blob. A bit like conscript squads, but they started out as 10s, but you merged them together before the game. And I remember I had 4 of these blob squads. And in the first turn, I lost like 2 of them. 1 got strafed. They were all formed. I formed them into like Napoleonic columns because I was just having fun. And I remember the Dakka Jet. I was playing against Orcs, and this Dakka Jet came in and just like did a strafing run on the guys. It was just like that scene from 13th Legion. Have any of you read the Imperial Guard book, 13th Legion, Last Chance? Just like in that, when the Stratifier comes down and just massacres an entire column of Mordies. It was just what happened then. And then another squad got charged by a unit of Meganobs, and again, I didn't lose that many, but because of morale, they all broke and fled. And basically, I lost the game. So by turn, that happened in like turn 2. But like, and I was in the local games workshop, and loads of people were like watching. They're like, "Oh, what a shame! Look at those guardsmen dying. Oh, you really need commissars." And I was like, "Oh yeah, sort of lesson learned kind of thing." I wasn't salty about it, just like lesson learned kind of thing. But what happened was, one of my, turn 3, he wiped out, the third of these blob squads. But turn 4, the game turned around. Because turn 4, I had this last big block of guardsmen, and I had a few shattered remnants from my other blocks as well, or command squads and stuff like that. And I was like, I can't win the game, but there was one objective that I'd placed on top of this hill, and it was sort of just outside of my deployment zone, and platoon 4, 4th platoon, led by their platoon commander. The company commander was dead, led by the platoon commander, flag waving in the wind. They took that goddamn hill and they dug in. And this was in the days when you could give orders. It was called like dig in, or whatever the order was called. And it meant that you got more cover saves and all this kind of stuff. And so these guys had taken the hill, they'd taken the objective, they dug in. I had my command squad on top with the flag, and the survivors from my remaining army, I pulled them back towards this hill, and we did a goddamn final. We did a genuine, straight out of the Black Lives, straight out of the books, last stand on top of a hill. Something like out of Rorke's Drift or Big Tooth River. This is when I hadn't repainted them all. So all my guys had like red armor and white helmets. It was proper Rorke's Drift style. And I remember I actually held off because the Orcs had spread out to kill the rest of my army. They ended up coming in piecemeal against 4th platoon. 4th platoon goddamn held. And there was these times where I needed to make double 1 on my leadership test, and I got it. They just held. No commissar, no priest, no nothing. They just held. And I actually ended up killing the majority of my opponent's army. And 4th platoon was just whittled down. This platoon that started out with 50 blokes and the command squad. And then by the time the stragglers had met up, there must have been 70 blokes holding this big, proper. It was one of the old GW hills that you could put them on the side of the table to make a valley, or you could put them together to make one big hill. And by the time the game was over, this happened all on sort of turn 3 they dug in, then turn 4, turn 5. Don't forget, turn 6 was a thing, and you used to roll to see if you went on to turn 7, and we got that turn 7. And by the time we got to turn 7, all that was left of this platoon was 15, 20 blokes tops. But the flag was still going. Flag was still going, platoon commander was still going, and yeah, I lost the game. My opponent held the remaining 3 or 4 objectives. There was kill points, there was first blood, there was slay the warlord, there was line break. My opponent smashed me on points, but every single but what went from a bunch of people sort of wandering around the game store, idly watching, by the time we finished, there must have been 10 plus people stood around the table cheering the guard on, come on lads, and the Orcs were coming, they're fix better. It wasn't just me doing it, it was great, and all these people were watching. And that moment will stay with me until inevitably the iron brew rots my brain, the dementia riddles me, kind of thing. Until that happens, that moment will stay with me, because it was honestly probably the best moment I've ever had playing with my Imperial Guard, honestly. And I lost the game, and that's why I love the Guard. For moments like that, and like I said, this video has no tangent, this video has no core, there's no script or anything, but that's why I love the Guard, for moments like that. And I'm sure that all you guys that listened to this video so far will be able to say, you have similar epic stories, epic moments. So just let me know, if you're an Imperial Guard player, why do you love the Guard? And if you're not an Imperial Guard player, do you like the Guard? Do you like facing against them? And, if you're not a Guard player, let us know your favourite faction. Let us know your favourite faction and why you love them so much. This sort of leads me on to the last point I want to make about why I love the Guard. And this is going to sound like it's pandering, it's going to sound wanky, guys, but I mean it wholeheartedly, I mean it. I just think this community is second to none. I've been part of many gaming groups, boys. I'm sure we've all been part of video gaming groups. We've all been part of various gaming groups. I've been part of many gaming groups, and I've never come across a bad guard player. I've never come across a bad one. Sometimes they can be a bit of a turbo nerd. Sometimes they can be. They'll talk your ear off for 40, 50 minutes about their guard regiment, and for some people they'd find that super annoying or super unself-aware. And for me, I love it. I'd sit there. I have sat when I've met people around the gaming hall. I have sat there and just sat down with them for an hour plus and just let them just talk at me about their guard and why they love the guard and all that kind of stuff. And I've barely said a word. I've just loved it because I just love hearing about. Because I just know how passionate that guy is about his little toy soldiers, just like how passionate I am about mine. So, and the community, I tend to find it's just made up of just a lot of really grounded people, a lot of really nice people, genuinely just nice blokes and blokettes, just genuinely just nice people. And so I guess I think the thing that has kept me going doing guard all these years, when everyone gets that feeling of burnout, everyone gets that tempted to pack it in. And I know the thing that's kept me around so long has been just being able to chat to other guard players about, to shoot the shit with them. I've got probably the majority of my friends that I've made as an adult have been just through chatting to people about not just Warhammer, but about the Imperial Guard. I've met several people through this channel that I consider good friends and not just acquaintances. And so that's one of the main things. I guess that's the other reason. That's like the IRL reason about why I love guard. And I know that I said that was probably the last thing I was going to say, but I guess the other thing, I suppose, would be, and there's no tangents all over the place video, but it's cool, man. It's just the way it is. It's one 13, 14, 15 minute long take. I don't do those anymore. Normally I try and keep things a little bit more professional, but I guess one other reason that I love the guard is it has a special place in my heart because it's what I grew up with. It's nostalgia for me. I remember playing as a kid when I really didn't know what I was doing, playing with some orcs, the old monopose space orcs. If any of you watched Midwinter Minis, he painted some of them up recently. Such a nostalgic. I want to get my hands on some, but I know I wouldn't have time to paint them. But I started with those. But my first proper, they were just gifted to me. But the first time I, as a person, put some skin in the game and bought some models of my own was I bought my guard army. It was 30, 40 guardsmen, a Lemur de Marshal, a Basilisk, and an old command squad, and a Chimera. And I bought all of that for 40 quid from my mate at school. That's what I bought it for. And that was it, man. And ever since, they're just my childhood. They're my childhood in physical form. And so that's why they'll always have a special place. No matter what other factions GW brings out, no matter what the game systems I end up playing. You guys know I love bot action. No matter how much I love bot action, I'm always going to... If anyone had to tell me, what do you prefer, bot action or 40k? What's your favourite thing? Just in general, I'd be like, it has to be 40k simply just because of the Imperial Guard. I love bot action as a game system. I think it is probably better than 40k in many ways. But I love the Imperial Guard as a faction more than anything else. So, yeah, that's it. I guess that's all I've really got to say about that. Hopefully you guys kind of enjoy this kind of rambling video. Thank you for watching. Like I said, let me know what you think down in the comment section below. I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone that has watched this video, that likes it, and that if you want to see more content like this, let me know down in the comment section. If you just want to see more of these sort of rambling, just sort of my takes on 40k, stream of consciousness kind of stuff, old school MG style content, let me know down in that comment section. And I guess I just want to say thank you. Thank you if you make it this far into the video. Thank you for watching. I also want to say a big thank you to everyone that has become a channel member and a Patreon supporter. You guys are absolutely fantastic. And I just want to take a moment to say a big thank you to the latest channel members and the latest Patreons. So just a big thank you to Crispy, Gunner NWP, Apathetic 11B, Cat Bryce, Greg Shimin, B Keith, Mr. Derp, Jared Kirkland, Gizzy 376, Jacob Dale, Matt Wright, Anthony Papagio, and Timmy the Elf. Thank you, boys, for all being channel members. Just thanks for just supporting me, guys. I really appreciate it. And the same goes to the Patreons. Huge thank you to Cadia4, Dominic Griffin, Frosten, James Carroll, Zed Silver 51, Brian Jones, Kevin Morgan, Marshall, Ven Diesel. Just thanks, boys. You're, like I said, the Guard community, man, just so kind, so generous. So all of your support is just It's amazing. And especially that of the War Masters. You guys know I always like to make a big deal out of my top tier Patreon supporters, but every single one of these boys, every single War Master, every single top tier Patreon supporter is just incredible. So if you've got this far in the video, just do a big 07, boys, down in the comment section. For Navy Veteran, Philip French, Ross Miller, Tekwal, Alex Dengal, John Stubbs, Nicholas Walsh, Swordfish Trombone, Diesel Fox, Tom Sutton, and of course, Sly Varney, the one-man super chatting army. Thank you, boys. I love all of you. Thank you for watching, of course, as always. I'll see you guys next time.